Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's NFL football discussion with me, Mr. Williams, no guest. It's one of those where it's the week where the host and the co-host play each other, so there's no guests, just me and Mr. Williams this week. People, if you are checking us out on YouTube, if you can do us a big favour and just click the subscribe button, it helps the channel, which ultimately helps everybody. Helps us bring fantastic content to you, the people. So here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces out. Back once again with the Renegade. What? Hey, no, that's not it. That's not how this one starts. That's how a different podcast starts. What about Renegade Masters? I don't even know if that's what it says.
What would that even be classed as? Mid 2000s, late 90s.
Old music podcast with your host, Old Man
Yeah,
Cook.
we'll go.
But it's not that podcast. In fact, it is my face for you people, you YouTube people, and his face, the two faces of this ship that drive through the world of the NFL.
American hand egg.
American hand egg. I was just about to say the egg-shaped ball. It is it's beginning to look a lot like end of the season. It's not, but for me, I reach a certain point of the season where I'm like, season's basically done now, innit? You know, when you can see the end of the fantasy season coming over the hill, you're like, well, you know, it might as well just fuck off for now. There are no guests. The eagle-eyed amongst you. There is a reason for that. It's not because we scared all of our guests away like other weeks. It is in fact because the way the guest system works is whoever either myself or Mr. Williams is playing in fantasy is that week's guest. And it's come round to that time of year again where it's me versus thee, him versus me. So there's no need for a guest. And the stats mistress had a case of the old, she was up all night. Yep, we have a child who is allergic to sleep. So that's fun for the whole family. But that's not what we're here to discuss. I did hear her say, I should go to bed, really. It's like, well, yeah, you know, it's only 7 o'clock. As we like to do, we like to look back before looking forward. And the way we do that is I hand the reins over to my esteemed colleague, and he tells us what last week's picks looked like and how many I won by.
Well, Andrew, it's funny you should mention that, actually, because week 11 of the NFL season, of course. What I have noticed is in the last couple of weeks, we've decided to take a week off from getting predictions correct. And we've just started what I can only presume is massively dialing it in. Because we're obviously not playing for points anymore. We're playing for banterific podcast episodes. I can only presume.
Can you do me a favour and just add 1 to the count of weeks that my accumulator was over after the first game? Because yeah, it's another week that happened.
Well, what you should have done is you should have spoken to the stats mistress for the first game.
Try not to.
Because she was sensible and she went for the Seahawks to win.
I mean, you say sensible. It's sensible in hindsight, isn't it? It wasn't necessarily the sensible move at the time.
Yes, but I believe I may have said on the podcast last week. In fact, I'm almost certain that I did.
You did.
That this was the hardest pick the hardest game to pick of the entire week.
Yeah.
Because you had the thought that if the Seahawks lost this one, they would be technically 2 games back.
Yeah.
On the Cardinals because of the 2 losses to them. So this basically resets the tiebreaker that the Cardinals had over them, and put them 1 win ahead of them. So, yeah, I mean, it sounded like it was a decent game. I tried to stay up and watch a bit of it, but wasn't able to stay up for much. And then obviously woke up as it was in about the 6th minute of the 4th quarter. So it was like, well, I'm awake now. So I stayed up and watched the end of it. So 14 games to pick from. In 3rd place, as there was no guest picks, with 6 out of 14 picks correct.
Oof.
He's hit the skids a bit. He needs a W from somewhere. It is the podcast host, Mr. Andrew Cook.
So, we'll come to this later, obviously, because it's the way things roll. But I personally feel if ever there's a week to get a win, this is the week. The games practically pick themselves, in my opinion. So it's not great. It's not great to come last again, but this is the week.
So we'll see.
Just saying.
We'll see what happens.
Just saying.
You know, who knows? We'll see what happens with the week. It could be that next week is the week and we all get a win. Who knows? So, with 7 out of 14 picks correct.
Halfway for ladies.
Halfway for gentlemen, as it was this guy.
Really? Don't tell me she's had another win.
Picking up another win, a 2nd win within a couple of weeks, I believe.
Shit, they're bad.
Is the podcast's very own Stats Mistress with 8 out of 14 picks correct. It was the Seahawks pick that did it for her.
Of course it was.
The Seahawks pick got her over the line.
Of course.
So yeah. So what that does, Andrew, is that does make the season picks standings very interesting.
Gonna be real tasty now.
Because everyone is within a point of the top. So, we have both the Stats Mistress and the collective guest on 2.5 points. We have the podcast co-host on 3 points. And then we have the godfather of the podcast family, I suppose, with 3.5 points. So you've got a half-point cushion at the moment, but it's.
And as I like to say, I do like a little bit.
It's all to play for.
Cushion.
6 weeks to go. 6 weeks to go before we have to start making some bold playoff picks, and that's where it becomes sketchy at best.
Yes, indeed. There's always an upset at playoff time. There's always an upset. So, half a point.
The Ravens.
Half a point. Any standout moments from the week for you, Mr. Williams? From week 11?
Probably the biggest point will be covered in the injury report later on, but obviously the horrific injury suffered by Joe Burrow.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolute doozy. I
must admit, when I was watching it on Sunday, there was a little group chat that I've got with a couple of people who watch it, and they were saying, "Oh, it looks bad. What's happened to him?" And I just said, like, watching it back, seeing the way that his knee like crumbled underneath him, you'd be amazed if he's not torn everything. And apparently, he's only torn 2 out of the 3 like cruciate ligaments and stuff like that. So, in one sort of way, it could have been a lot worse, but obviously, it's not good, and it's you'd imagine that the potential is that he's not only will he miss the rest of this season, he probably won't play any of next season either. So, puts the Bengals back where they were before the draft, really.
It was one of those. I don't know how I felt about the fact that I don't know how many minutes he'd been off the field before he sent a tweet about his injury status. I'm like, is that top of your priority list? Oh, just let me shoot out a quick tweet, guys.
He's a young lad, isn't he?
I suppose. I think the standout thing for me for the week is I saw earlier today that somebody, possibly on ESPN, has called out the GOAT himself for his horrific sportsmanship. So it looks it looks like he has this thing about anybody he loses to, he won't shake their hand. So again, with a loss to the Rams, nowhere to be seen at the end of the game. So he's been put on blast, as the kids would say. He's been called out for his unsportsmanlike conduct.
Wow!
And basically, this thing I saw was saying we need to address this issue. It's really poor of him to act like that. And I think you'll struggle to find somebody that disagrees. It's a really poor show, and it's one of those. I thought about it and was like, you think about how much time he spent with the Patriots and how much time it probably went unnoticed because they were such a him, Belichick, the Patriots, they were such a juggernaut that they won more games than they lost. It would have gone unnoticed until now. So I back the bid for calling him out. They should put him on. They should put him on and interview him about it and just be like, "What's the deal here?" But yeah, not necessarily game related. But that was just something I saw earlier.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look on the Twitter. To see what it says, and yeah, it does seem to be quite rife on there. So poor form. I mean, that's part of it, isn't it? Like, obviously, you've got to have. There'll be people in there that'll sort of say, "Well, why should he be shaking his hand? He doesn't want to lose," and so like that. It's like, yeah, I get that, but you've also got to be gracious in defeat.
Yeah. But
you've also got to be a gracious winner at the same time. You can't.
Because
there's nothing worse than people who win, or people who are victorious, people who are successful, who then just go and gloat and like rub it in people's faces.
Yeah, because I'm sure
you'll be a gracious winner, and you've definitely got to take defeat.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be exactly the same the other way round. If he was running up to Goff, if they'd have won and he was running up to Goff, giving it all all of this and, rubbing his face in it and stuff, I'm sure he'd get called out for that as well. It's exactly the same thing. You have to be gracious in defeat and you have to be gracious in victory as well.
Absolutely.
That's what that handshake is. That handshake is either well done, you played a better game, or well done, you played a good game, we were just luckier, or we were in a better position, or whatever. But that handshake says both things. So without it, it's a really poor show. It's really, really poor.
Perfect example of like a case of good sportsmanship would be in the Packers-Colts game, because if you saw some of the bits of that, obviously at the end of that you could see that Rodgers and Rivers were both stood on the pitch together, and they were chatting to each other, and they were like, obviously they'd met at half distance, like at the centre of the pitch, to have the sort of the post-match sort of breakdown, I suppose, that quarterbacks generally tend to have, and they were stood talking to each other for a good couple of minutes, it looked like, and that's how it should be. And you didn't see Rodgers there like with the old boo-boo face on because his team had lost. He took it in his stride. I can't imagine he was happy, because when's Aaron Rodgers ever happy? He won his fucking one game.
That is one miserable man. The one that always stood out for me was Andrew Luck, where towards the back end of his career, when they were showing like times when he was mic'd up and saying what a good sportsman he was, like he'd be getting sacked, like hard sacked, and he'd be like, "Good hit, big man. Good hit. Good hit." It's like, you don't get better sportsmanship than that, and that's the other end of the scale. So a handshake and a well done, and then walk off the field. It's not that difficult. You know, you don't have to be going to the extremes of, you know, congratulating people when they absolutely rail you to the ground. But at the same time, just walking off, spitting your dummy out like a big baby, it's like, have a word. So yeah, that was something that stood out for me. I mean, it's no secret I'm not the biggest Brady fan. I'm not one of the Brady bunch. So, fantasy-wise, did you have a win in the last week?
I did not. I think my fantasy season's been in the toilet for the past 12 weeks.
The week before the draft. I'm including the draft in that week. Obviously. Yeah, we're only at week 12. So. I didn't have a win, and it's one of those. I was winning, and my opponent had 2 players left to play, but I wasn't winning by enough. Admittedly, one of those players was Sir Thomas of Braidleton. That is not the only reason for my dislike of Mr. Brady. The list is long. So yeah, another week where I took another loss. I think now that as far as fantasy is concerned, now we can see the fantasy playoffs coming around the corner. I am a position out of the playoffs, I believe. I think I'm joint 7th with the stats mistress. She informed me. She could have been lying to me for all I know. And as I've always said, there are a couple of teams that I never ever want to go up against. No matter who those players on those teams are, there are just teams I don't want to go up against. Mr. Matthew Hurley is one of them, and Your Good Self is the other one that I never want to really go up against. And unfortunately, it's me versus, as previously mentioned, it's me versus this week. So not looking forward to that. My season has been riddled with injuries. I know a lot of people have suffered through injuries and things. My fantasy team has been hit hard through the injury side of this season. So yeah, it's all I can do to actually put players in my lineup. There is, I think, the last 4 or 5 weeks I've had to pick someone up every week, and in our big league, picking someone up, it's like, oh, do I want someone who might score me 4 points or somebody who might score me 3 points? I mean, the choice. So it's stuff like that. I actually have that exact situation this week. Obviously, you know, me versus you. So I'll say it now. Good luck to you for this week. I hope you. I hope we can virtually shake hands this time next week.
I think I'm at the point where my team, if you can call it that, is just it's hanging on by literally not even fingertips, like bones within the fingers. So
it's just the joy.
I wouldn't worry too much. I think yeah, from a fantasy perspective, you'll you'll take care of business rather easily this week.
I haven't looked at what the numbers are saying because it does the app does that thing. It's like, hey, here's the person you played last week. It's like, last week is done. I want to know what's happening this week. But speaking of last week, at this point in time, last week is not done because the stats mistress may not be here, but she's here in spirit, and she has sent down from the mountain the stats. What I will say is, and this isn't a criticism, we don't live in a blame culture, but there are no injuries that I'm seeing this week. I think there might be a bit of injury mixed into the stats, but we'll see. So, credit goes to Nate Davis of USA Today, and then credit goes to the Stats Mistress for getting the best of those stats and sending them to us. These are the NFL Week 11 stats. The first of those stats is this. In his first NFL start under centre, Taysom Hill led the Saints to a 24-9 win over Atlanta, completing 18 of 23 throws for 233 yards, while rushing for a team-high 51 yards and 2 scores. Breeze and Hill have combined for 565 career touchdown passes. Breeze throwing for a league record 565, while Hill has a donut here in year 4.
That is weird. It's weird that he's a quarterback who's never thrown a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
But it's like his rushing touchdown stats are off the chain.
Yeah, that's crazy. Number 2, 4 days after making the 2-year anniversary of the gruesome leg injury that nearly ended his career and almost his life, Washington quarterback Alex Smith notched his first win since the fateful play as the football team took down the Bengals. Well done to Alex Smith and the Washington football team. Speaking of, unfortunately, number 3, Smith's counterpart Sunday, Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow, apparently suffered a knee injury that will end his rookie season. The number 1 pick sure made a positive early impression and showed every indication he can lift this downtrodden franchise in future years. Before Burrow went down, he spun his 13th touchdown pass of the season to wide receiver AJ Green, the first time Green had reached the end zone in more than 2 years. That's a crazy stat right there. As bad, this is number 4, as bad a day as Burrow had, nice to see his Cincinnati predecessor Andy Dalton, 3 touchdown passes, coming off a bout with COVID-19, notch his first win in a Cowboy uniform. Dalton found Dallas tight end Dalton Schultz for the game-winning score in the final 2 minutes of a 31-28 upset at Minnesota. Far more importantly, it was the first time in league history that a quarterback threw a touchdown pass to a player whose first name matched the passer's last name. I mean, seriously, running back Ezekiel Elliott also had a big day for Dallas, hitting the century mark in rushing yards, 103, for the first time in 2020. Right, I get another shot. So number 5, Miami's Tua Tagovailoa didn't have a great day. Despite becoming the first Dolphins rookie quarterback since Dan Marino in 1983 to throw a touchdown in 4 consecutive games, Tagovailoa enjoyed his first NFL defeat in Denver and got benched in the 4th quarter. So I think things like that are often a bit harsh. I mean, I get, you're there to win and stuff, but
there was talk that it wasn't purely about the game. There was if you watch back, I think he either threw an interception or he threw an incompletion that brought up fourth down. And in the process, I think he got rolled up on. So I think they might have been a bit worried about his ankle and stuff like that, and his leg in general. So I think they were potentially doing it as a precaution.
Oh, right, okay.
Just sort of like the game was looking like it was lost. Maybe thought they could get something with Fitz without having to risk Tua like overexerting himself. So I think it was potentially a bit of both. Really.
Number 6, Chargers. Justin Herbert began the weekend as the first quarterback in Super Bowl era to lose 7 of 8 starts, despite an overall passer rating exceeding 100. But he passed for 3 touchdowns and a career-best 366 yards to beat the Jets 34-28. I believe that is over to you, Mr. Williams, for more stats.
Sir. Pittsburgh's Chase Claypool is the only wideout during the Super Bowl era to score 10 touchdowns in his first 10 games. Sticking with the Steelers, they now have a sack in 67 consecutive games, just 2 shy of matching the all-time league record owned by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Finally on Pittsburgh, they're 10-0 for the first time in franchise history, and the 9th club this century to start that hot. Of the previous 8, only one, the 2009 Saints, went to and won the Super Bowl.
Interesting.
We go from the sublime to the less than sublime. The Jets. 0-10 for the first time in franchise history. But did Vince McMahon write these stats or something?
I did notice there was a lot of first time, but it's the NFL, isn't it? They can make a stat out of anything. Honestly, I'm waiting for the stat. It's like this is the first time in Super Bowl era that a man that had scrambled eggs for breakfast managed to run for a 4-yard touchdown in the snow in the middle of summer.
Oh dear. Jets 0-10 for the first time in franchise history, and the 9th club this century to start that frigid. Of the previous 8, only 2 went on to finish the season 0-16. The 2008 Lions, and most recently the 2017 Cleveland Brownies. Back onto some good news though. Ravens wide receiver Des Bryant caught 4 passes for 28 yards on Sunday. That is the first time he'd recorded a reception since his final game with the Cowboys in 2017. A span of 1,057 days. Nice to see Des back in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's still as batshit mental as he was previously, if not more. But it's good he can catch a ball still.
Exactly. Couple more to finish. So the Patriots' 4-6 start is their worst through 10 games since Bill Belichick's inaugural campaign in New England, when the club lost 8 of its first 10. If the Patriots and Ravens each currently sit out. Wow. I got a bit confused there. So the stat was still correct. It is New England. So it's the worst since his first campaign there, where they lost 8 of the first 10. If the Patriots and Ravens each currently sit outside the AFC playoff picture, both missed the postseason, it'll mark the first time that's happened since 2002. And finally, we come to the best division in football. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for some NFC East chatter. In the NFC East, the Eagles remain in the hot spot of first place, despite having a best record of 3-6-1. That's all in spite of losing in Cleveland on Sunday. However, their lead at the top of the division has been reduced to just a half game, thanks to that draw in Cincinnati after the Cowboys and Washington joined the idle Giants at 3-7 in a three-way tie for second place. Seriously, the way that the playoff system works in the NFL is just an absolute joke. So they showed it up on Red Zone on Sunday at the end of the games. You had Saints were the top seed. I think they were 7-2, 8-2. No, it must be 7-2 because this week. No, it must be 8-2 because this week. Then you've got the Packers. Then you've got the Seahawks. And then there was then you had the wild card teams were the Cardinals and Rams, and possibly the Bears. I think it might have been another team. And then sneaking in the fourth seed spot was the fucking Philadelphia Eagles with 3 wins all season.
It's
absolute joke.
Bonkers. It's a system where you can be twice as bad and still get into the playoffs. So they've lost more than twice as many games.
It's that situation where if you're not going to finish as the top seed, you almost want to sort of finish as the 5th seed, so you get whoever it is that finishes top of the NFC East for your opening playoff game.
Which is what I started when I was like, oh, the conspiracy buff.
It's going to be. I think as the weeks go further deeper into the season, I think you're going to see a little bit of potentially sort of tactical football being played.
And this is what I was saying about those
that are in the wild card, or in the play. Yeah,
I was saying that about those Seahawks games,
like the sort of the 5th, 6th, and 7th seed.
Tactical
watch
playing.
This space, because I think there's going to be some shithousery going on there.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's been if you go back and look at certain games, I'm sure there's been a little bit. Let's sit this one out, because that goes down as a loss, and a loss will put us just a little bit further down, so that we can coast a little. And we all know about playoff push. Get that first game out of the way, get that comfortable game out of the way, and then really go for it. It's all tactics. I've always said American football is chess, just played on a field rather than on a board. It's all up here. Yeah, athletically, they've got to be big and strong and all that, but it's all up here. That's why it's always about, who's got a great defense. Great defense is going to win the game. So, that puts to bed week 11 of the 2020 NFL season. Done. Gone. See you later. We look forward now to week 12, which is the second to last week of the fantasy season. I'll be sad to see it go, other than the fact that we get playoffs as well. Some of us won't be there, but can't have it all, can you? I picked some games, and as I was saying earlier, callback, great comedy and all that. As I was saying earlier, I believe this week is the week to get a win. The games basically pick themselves. If you do it on Pick'ems, this was a week where the two teams, one was like a full green bar and the other one was like a little, like a nubbin. So they were no-brainers. Obviously, every week there's a coupon buster. There's a game that just blows everything out of the water. Have we got me, you, and the stats mistress all going with the same games?
Well, it would appear that this week in the predictions, Vince McMahon has indeed done the predictions, because here on the CookieCast Laces Out podcast,
for the first time ever,
we are going to bring to you, for the first time ever a complete three-way tie in the predictions.
And as we know, whenever there is an absolute definite tie, it is settled by arm wrestle. Unfortunately, all arm wrestling is done virtually these days.
So, there's a couple of ways around we can do this. Either we each have to pick which game we think will have the most points combined in it. Or
I like what you're selling.
No, we'll need to do something that acts as some sort of tiebreaker that would give the person the point that week.
Yes. Unfortunately, we haven't established this before recording, so
Have not. So you're watching the first, like I say, first time ever, ladies and gentlemen, and we are doing this on the fly. So
yes. I wonder if I can get a.
Excuse me.
So what are we saying? We need the game that we think is gonna have. Alright, let me go and see.
No, actually, scratch that. Scratch that, because that could be scuppered by, like, if none of us pick the highest scoring game, that's going to scupper it. Instead of that, we each have to pick the minute we think the first touchdown will be scored across any of the games.
I like that.
Because, obviously, there's only 60 minutes to pick from, and the likelihood of us each picking the same minute is very unlikely.
Oh, but this week, something we haven't covered this week. What happens this week in America?
Well, it is Thanksgiving.
So there's more games. So
well, the reason I've said the minute thing is that because it doesn't matter which game it's scored in, the fastest touchdown will still be the fastest touchdown, if you see what I mean.
I'm just sending it to her.
So say if you went for the 7th minute, you get the 7th minute in all 16 of the games.
Yeah, get you.
I would get the 10th minute, Leanne would get the 12th minute, whatever, or basically whatever minute it is that we decide that we pick. So I won't do it live on the podcast. I'll just wait until you two have sent me yours in to make sure that we don't duplicate and things like that.
Okay.
And then whoever's closest gets the point, or gets the tiebreaker.
All right, I'm down with that. Well,
Yeah.
I've let her know so she can let alive at time of record. Oh, do you need? Because I know mine. I've now got hers.
Right. If you send those to me, and we'll do it live on the podcast.
Ooh. It's happening now. It's happening as we speak. Are you ready? Here you go. There.
So, Andy has placed a very ambitious first minute.
Yep. This is the week where we're going to see somebody just absolutely bomb it down. In fact, no. I'm going to go out on a limb. It's going to be a return for touchdown.
Kick-off return for a touchdown.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Leanne has gone for the 3rd minute. So, people are going to assume he's going to pick the 2nd minute here.
No,
he's not going to pick the 2nd minute.
He's not. He's going to go.
I'm going to go for
6. Five's a good number. 5's a good, solid number.
I'm going to go for the 5th minute. So
there we go.
We've each picked every single team the same. However, we do our tie-break method set in stone. 1st minute, 3rd minute, 5th minute. Obviously, if no touchdowns are scored until the 6th minute onwards, do I win it by default because I've picked the latest minute?
Yeah. Didn't think of that. Damn it. But you got to work on the principle that that's 6 minutes of every game. For no touchdowns to be scored in the first 6 minutes of every game, I find that to be unlikely. So basically, it could be between you and Leanne. And it could literally go...
Not if, listen, you can just paint the picture now. It's Thanksgiving morning / afternoon. Here it'll be evening. 5 p.m. on Thursday. Matt Prater puts boot to ball, kicks it up into I'd say the Detroit evening sky, but they play in a dome stadium, so into the atmosphere within the humidity-controlled atmosphere of Ford Field. It comes down to, for some reason, Will Fuller's in the game as a kick returner. No idea why. And he just takes it to the house.
It's happening. Mark my words.
Andrew Cook, therefore, gets the win. That's the best thing about this, is that technically, the tiebreaker
is the decider.
When it comes to the first game, settles who wins the win.
It's the decider. It's like, it doesn't matter who wins any of the other games, the tiebreaker is this week's competition. Oh, it's amazing.
So there you go.
It's all down to chance. The way I like it.
So, well, all it just means is that if we take the Thanksgiving games in isolation, if there's no touchdowns in the Thanksgiving games before the 6th minute, the predictions are still on the line when it comes round to Sunday. So,
oh, it's juicy. I like it. I like it a lot.
It is.
So, that brings us nicely to the back end, where it's my time to ask you if you've got any other business to take care of.
Nothing other businessy, just to obviously to wish our American brethren a lovely happy Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
You know, enjoy yourselves, have some nice food, watch some nice foosball.
Have a slice of pumpkin pie on us. Pumpkin pie. Well, I don't have anything else. I think I've rambled on enough this evening. I've obviously had too many coffees or something. No such thing. Thank you to you and good luck to you for this week, sir. And I'll release you back into the wild. Thank you very much.
You too, sir.
So there you go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another week of the season gone. The fantasy season coming to a close. Just playoffs, and then it'll be actual playoffs, and yeah, Super Bowl's just around the corner now. Can you believe it? YouTube watchers, if you could subscribe, it's a huge help to us. And everybody else, jump over to thecookiecast.com. Check us out over there. You can drop us a line if you want. There's various ways to do that, and we love to hear from you. So that's it for this one. Until next time, I'll say bye, and I'll see you then.